Welcome to The Human Code, the podcast where technology meets humanity, and the future is shaped by the leaders and innovators of today. I'm your host, Don Finley, inviting you on a journey through the fascinating world of tech, leadership, and personal growth. Here, we delve into the stories of visionary minds who are not only driving technological advancement, but also embodying the personal journeys and insights that inspire us all. Each episode, we explore the intersections where human ingenuity meets the cutting edge of technology, unpacking the experiences, challenges, and triumphs that define our era. So, whether you're a tech enthusiast, an inspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the human narratives behind the digital revolution, you're in the right place. Welcome to The Human Code. In this episode, we are excited to welcome Mikah Sellers, a dynamic and entrepreneurial executive known for his unconventional strategies that drive revenue and capture market share. Mikah has a remarkable track record of leading organizations towards growth and productivity, making him a sought-after leader in an evolving and competitive market. Today, Mikah and I will share how marketing has evolved with technology and the new skills marketers need to succeed, the ways AI can enhance human potential, focusing on improving efficiency while preserving the human touch, the essential skills and mindsets needed to prepare for the future of work in an AI-driven world. Join us today as we dive into these engaging topics with Mikah Sellers. This episode is jam-packed with valuable insights that will inspire you to rethink how you approach your career and the integration of technology. I wouldn't miss it. Welcome back. Another episode of The Human Code. I'm here with Mikah Sellers, who we're going to talk about the connection between humanity, technology, organizational development. Mikah has an excellent career that he has built over the years, has his doctorate from the University of Pennsylvania, as well as being faculty at Georgetown University for 12 years as well. There's many things that I'm leaving out of this, but Mikah, thank you so much for being with us today. And I just got to ask you, what got you interested or what's kept you interested in what's happening in technology and humanity?
First, thanks for inviting me on. I'm glad to be here. It's a topic that I'm really passionate about. I would say it really goes back to the beginning of my career. When I first came out of the military and came into the civilian world, I got into this intersection of marketing and technology. And as I'm sure you're aware, through the early aughts of the 2000s all the way up to today, marketing has been transformed dramatically. You've seen CRM and market automation and dozens of platforms that marketers use today to do their jobs. The technology really transformed marketing and also transformed the nature of being a marketer. Like in the old days, right? Like you just had to be really good at ad and copy and design and be creative. But as we saw the transformation of marketing with MarTech, marketers had to become technologists, right? They had to learn how to do, basic scripting and basic markup and understand Boolean logic to do all kinds of advanced queries and learn how to do analytics and reporting and understand sentiment analysis and all kinds of things 20 years ago were just not a thing. And that really intrigued me when I started seeing technology, other elements of the workforce. And that was intriguing. And I started thinking about, all right, what is this going to mean for society at large? And somewhere around 2011, I started teaching at Georgetown, and specifically in the master's program for technology management. And a lot of the students were starting to see the trends of how we need to adapt and need to adapt how they educate their workforces, how they develop their workforces, not just in terms of the practical day in, day out stuff, but also leadership and how leadership needs to start to think about career development, the career progression. And that really intrigued me. So somewhere along the lines, I had this crazy idea of going back and getting my doctorate. And I decided to focus on leadership and learning at the Graduate School of Education at the University of Pennsylvania. And one of the things that I became deeply interested in is the future of work and how technology is shaping the future of work. But the more I dove into it, the more I realized that there's this three-legged stool, right? That we really need to embrace in order to adapt as a society, which is, organizations need to understand how technology is transforming their workplace and how it's going to impact their workers. Government needs to understand how all these things are taking place and what the implications of those things are, both from a regulatory perspective, but also from investment perspective. We need government to subsidize a lot of times, not just in society. And this is one of those things, right? But also from a regulatory perspective, because we have to put guardrails in, right, to protect both workers, but also the general public. As these technologies get rolled out, as we've seen, AI is amazing. It has tremendous potential, but it can also be used for really nefarious purposes.
Absolutely.
And abused. So government has to put the right regulatory frameworks in to make that happen. The third leg of that stool is academia. And academia needs to adapt based on what AI is going to enable us to do and how humans are going to be interacting with AI. What is the human element that's going to make AI really effective? Because as we know, AI is not sentient. It doesn't have human emotion. AI is never going to have an emotional quotient. It's a human thing, right?
I don't know, man. I might disagree with you on that one. But at the same time, I agree that today's not the day.
It's sentient, right? And AI is never
very good at mimicking.
Yeah, it's never going to have a soul. It's never going to have a soul. It's never going to be a human. And
it's definitely different than a human. Yeah.
Yeah. I think even as we get into like really advanced AI, super intelligent AI, it's still not going to be human. Like when you think about, for example, generative AI, yeah, can you like put in some great keywords and can you train the AI to make an authority art that put out iteratively better? Yes, but can you tell that it was generated by AI? Absolutely, because it impacts a certain amount of humanity and we see things differently, right? AI is not going to be able to interpret that, but kind of getting out the slide a little bit here. But I think as I began to get really interested in that intersection of technology and the future of work and how we need to adjust and adapt, some things that occurred to me, a pace of change has dramatically accelerated. We saw in the 90s, like computing, Moore's law. Every year, processors would get significantly better and kind of over time.
Doubling every 18 months. Yeah.
And the speed of that with technology, specifically things like AI, are moving much faster. And I think we're also on the precipice of some really amazing breakthroughs in computing, which will take AI to get to the next level with supercomputing, quantum computing, and sort of make things so much more accessible. And we're also saying, I think what's interesting is 3, 4, 5 years ago, AI was it's very nascent stages in the industry, but we've seen that the rapid progression and adoption of AI by businesses almost
absolutely. And it's also a completely different mindset around AI implementation today than it was 3, 4 years ago. My background, like I have an undergrad in computer science with a focus in artificial intelligence. And so like I graduated early 2000s, basically the dead winter of AI. There wasn't enough compute and there wasn't enough data to do the things that we do today. And it wasn't until the mid 2010s that we saw image classification really come about and the recognition of what we could do with GPUs and the collection of data that we had on the internet. But even from 2014 up until 2021, really, we were seeing things that were very narrow in their implementation of what this artificial intelligence could do. It could recognize a picture, it could draw you a crazy image, but not in the way that generative AI does today. We were doing like content style transfers. Hey, I have this picture and I have this Monet, make this picture look like Monet. I honestly was of the mindset that like, hey, we're going to actually, the jobs that we're going to automate away with AI are going to be more of like the blue collar worker type jobs or like the low skill type tasks that would end up being something that we could define narrowly. And so it narrow focus AI. But now I've seen the change of we're getting to a point where we're talking about like intelligence and the cost of intelligence being driven to zero with what we're looking at with the transformer architectures and then the emergent qualities of like reasoning and logic that are showing up in these. Now, are they super intelligent? I don't think so. And I don't think that we're at a point where it actually has a great understanding or depth of understanding of what it's doing. And it's still at some point a probabilistic machine. But what we can do with it is fascinating. And the implementations that we're doing today is a lot different than what we were talking about 2 years ago. And how we're impacting customer service and relationships is incredible from like the opportunities that exist there.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great example. I worked at a company called Everise, which is a global company that provides contact centers for big brands all over the world. And one of my main focuses there was in AI, leveraging AI for AI-enabled chatbots, conversational assistant, robotic process automation, et cetera. And I think what I saw there, though, is there's this idea that you can reduce your headcount in the contact center. And to some degree, that may be true. However, the way that companies should really be approaching this is AI should be a tool to allow humans to reach their full potential. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should remove humans. Take the contact center, for instance. You can use AI to route people intelligently to the right person, or you can use AI to monitor the conversation and identify when, the conversation is getting hot. Maybe you need to bring in a supervisor, you need to escalate it, or when you are detecting that, somebody who is a super valuable customer with a tremendous lifetime value is about to jettison the brand. Those are all really important things. But what I also saw, people still value talking to people at the end of the day. And you can't remove the human equation altogether. That would just be the overall wrong approach. There are also some really interesting things I saw that are emerging in the contact center, are just wild. Like the ability to make somebody from the Philippines sound like Joe from Texas in real time. Removing their accent altogether in a way that's cool. And in other ways, it's incredibly scary. Because the technology that enables that also is the technology that enables things like deepfake and things that can be used for really nefarious and abusive purposes.
It's like the balance between nuclear energy and the nuclear bomb. Like on one side, you could use the technology for something that helps millions of people. And on the other side, it can hurt many. What kind of guardrails do you think we need in place to see some of these benefits? Or like, how can we in our own lives make that determination?
Yes, that's honestly one of the things that scares me the most, to be candid. Let's just take a step back. Let's just look at the internet broadly. It's the emergence of the internet. Governments all around the world have been slow to regulate. We're still seeing that with every time Facebook executives or X executives or Google executives get called up on the Hill. And there's all these congressional hearings. What they're addressing is the fact that still this thing is very largely unregulated. The interrupts are very largely unregulated. And yet we've seen some protections come on board, and consumer protections and things around email marketing, we can't stand that and like that. But it's really a very thin layer of regulation. And when you look at something like AI that has significant potential for abuse, I think it's going to take that three-legged stool, industry, government, academia, all coming together in some kind of super Congress to think about all the different ways we need to regulate this, and that we need to put guardrails in place sooner than later, because this just keeps evolving so fast, and the implementation is going so fast that if we don't put those regulations into place, we can see some real harm, both to the consumer public, but also to the workforce, and not necessarily looking at all the things we need to do to adjust and adapt in order to make this work for society broadly.
I always come back to what is my ideal vision of like where we go with this. And a couple of things that you've brought up that I also agree with is you got to look at like how the AI serves humanity in regards to like actually making a solution so that we can connect better with people, or that we can fulfill our goals in a more effective way. I've been involved in process automation, process efficiency for a while. And I can't tell you the number of times that we've put down like reduced headcount in an ROI analysis, and 100% of the time, like not a single head gets cut. Most organizations don't have as many people as they would like to have. They already have those people on the books, and there's probably 2 other jobs that aren't getting done when they go through and automate some of that. So they tend to retrain people in the organization or enhance the skills that they have. So it's a nice like up leveling. But when it comes to AI and like the intelligence that we're talking about bringing to the table, what's your ideal situation for that? What's the utopian outlook?
But I think you just spoke to it, which is we should be thinking about AI in terms of allowing humanity to reach their full potential. AI can eliminate routine, mundane tasks. It can eliminate even some tasks which require some levels of intelligence. However, I think we should be thinking about how the workforce leverages that to 10x themselves, but then also to use the time that's gained back to put more human work, to add more value. You think about, for example, customer service. If you can reduce a call with transaction time by 30%, wouldn't that enable that agent to then build relationships? You're not theoretically you could build a relationship with AI. I think you probably want to see a mental health support if you're doing that. But I think at the end of the day, people build relationships with people. And in that case, the customer service agent could spend more time with the customer, understanding the customer, how the customer wants to relate and interact with the brand. That would be valuable. And the ability for pattern recognition to enable that to ask smarter questions.
But at the same time, helping to deepen that relationship and that connection that comes off of. Yeah.
100%. And I think we could see that, right? Like, not just the contact, let's say for whole other professions where we're going to see this rapidly transform the workforce. Paralegals. They do a lot of routine process-oriented stuff, even to some degree, examining things like case law. You could probably get AI to do that at a pretty high level, but it will still take human level of interpretation to then go back at the end and figure out, is what the AI telling me really have weighty bearing in this particular case? And that's where you get 10x a lawyer. You think, for example, in marketing, there are a lot of things that AI can do when it comes to marketing, but then at the end of the day, there's still going to be the human element as a marketer thinking about how humans are receiving this message. Because how we interpret and process things is not how a machine interprets and processes things. So we're still going to need the human. You mentioned earlier generative AI, and I think that's a great example. There's been this ongoing conversation in marketing broadly, and I came from the agency space early in my career. And there was this overwhelming concern. AI was going to replace user experience designers and graphic designers. And I think, again, to some degree, good, but is the work that's going to be produced going to have that human element, that human quality? If we rely 100% on machines to do it, no. But that's why I think we need to start to look at how we think about AI, its applications in industry, how our workers are going to be interacting with AI, how we hiring, train people to equip them to understand AI and how they can.
What do you think are the best, like that skill set change that you're talking about is we're now looking at AI as performing a task. It's no longer the tool that requires the human to operate. It's the tool that operates itself and can make some decisions for itself. And when I sometimes explain this, I basically say, just think of AI as another worker that you're putting in. But at the same time, the skill necessary to manage that worker is now your responsibility. So instead of being the technician, you're the manager in this relationship. How do you see this playing out as far as how organizations are bringing these tools in to help?
Yeah, I think one of these I've always been concerned about when it comes to AI is the old guide open for garbage in, garbage out. It's going to determine the output you get. We've seen that in lots of really horrible experiments or, even AI's generated some racist content. I think we need to figure out that human and computer interface, how we design systems and we design work and we train workers, right, to interact with those machines, with the AI, to produce the very best results. And I do think there is going to need to be a deep discussion between industry and academia. And when we think about the workforce of the future and how and what we're training people to do in college, how we're educating people, it's going to have to adapt and change, because a lot of the stuff that we used to focus on will just no longer really be all that relevant when you have the ability to get an answer in a nanosecond.
Why develop a skill set kind of situation if that skill set is easily going to be duplicated by the machine? But I think finding our purpose and finding the thing that really makes us alive is where the AI can help us accomplish what that is, while taking off the work that is boring.
Yeah,
at least boring to us.
I think if I were to think of it as like an analogy, like in the enterprise, the leader of the organization is like the composer when it comes to AI, right? And everybody that's in the workforce is playing an instrument, and the instrument they're playing is AI, and they're using AI to do their work. And it's the composer's responsibility to make sure that everybody is, on the same sheet of music, doing the right things at the right time, produce the right result. And I think a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot that we haven't thought of. And we've definitely seen lots of examples of where companies are moving really fast to implement AI, and they're not necessarily thinking through all of the potential challenges that exist with that, both internally as well as the results that are produced to customers externally. So I think we're in this unique point in time where we really need those three legs that come together on that stool and address these big challenges, because if we look 10 or 15 years out, there is the potential for a massive shift, right, in the labor force. And that's inevitable, right? Whether it's 10, 15%, 20%, 25%, who knows? If I could prognosticate like that, I would have bought NVIDIA stock 5 years ago before they got on the AI bandwagon, and I'd be over a millionaire right now. But I think we know that change is coming. So how do we address it from a government perspective, in terms of like how we're investing in education, how we're working with industry to create regulations, to create guardrails for AI, protections for consumers, but also protections for the brands themselves, because the brands also have inherent risk. And then academia, let's be honest, academia is even worse than government. It moves at a glacial pace in terms of change and transformation in education. Glacial pace.
And that's what I was going to ask you about. Like, we have a technology that is moving so fast, and we have industry that moves almost at a breakneck pace, no matter what's going on. So give them any bit of like leeway, and business kind of does what business does. It serves a market need and pushes aside some of that like social disaster that could possibly happen. Whereas like government has a bit of a slower cycle to it. Like we were talking, the internet still is somewhat unregulated. Privacy controls in the United States are somewhat abysmal in comparison to the European Union, which literally just passed that legislation a couple of years ago. And so like we're almost like 15 years behind from a regulatory standpoint on the internet, and AI seems to be changing at a breakneck pace, or at least if we continue on the curve that we're on, we're heading into some pretty intense times. And you're saying academia is on a slower cycle than what we have.
Even slower than government, which is crazy when you think about how slow government is. Take Quant, for example. They just finally passed laws that require you to acknowledge and verify your age and access that, which should have been done 20 years ago. When you think about how slow the internet's moved in terms of the regulatory pace, AI, right? The challenges that AI presents are astronomical. Once it really gets embedded into all these systems, you think, for example, social media, it's still the Wild West in terms of how it's regulated. With virtual AI-driven influencers start to really propagate the internet 24/7.
Are you familiar? Yeah. Are you familiar with the dead internet theory? Yeah.
It's going to be crazy when you think about that's going to really transform things. You've seen just even recently, like the new experiments with the latest release of ChatGPT-4, where it's super interactive. Like the ability for brands to leverage virtual influencers, virtual customer service. It's all right there. But at the same time, there's almost no regulatory framework in place to govern how those systems are going to operate, how they're going to interact with the public, what they are not allowed to do, what they are not allowed to say. These are things we really need to take into consideration. And when you think about going back to that 10, 15, 20 years out, the changes in the workforce, if we don't address how the workforce is going to transform over that time period, now we're going to be in a really bad spot in 10, 15, 20 years. Like our unemployment rate could be astronomical.
Oh, yeah. And what do you think the break? We don't even have to define this, but there's a breaking point at which our government programs and our social safety nets crumble.
Collapse. Yeah, collapse.
Exactly. And we actually are at a point right now where the technology is showing itself to be a possible tool of causing that collapse if we don't do something. And whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, it still is showing as a possibility, right? We're driving the cost of intelligence to zero.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You think about just this sheer number of industries that could be impacted. We're on the precipice now where in 5 years, you can go into McDonald's and not interact with a single human being.
I think there are McDonald's that don't have people taking orders anymore. Like they're all doing it by phone or by touchscreen display. So yeah.
Yeah, like, where the robots are like actually making the burgers and putting it on the counter. You don't interact with the single human being. That's not just Sony in the future anymore. It's 5, 10 years removed. It's totally possible. To your point, like even those low skill jobs, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but they're not jobs that require super high levels of intelligence. When those jobs are replaced, what's most people do? And we're talking about a significant portion of the economy.
Even if we just go to, let's use truck drivers as one thing. I think there's 10 million people employed in driving trucks right now. And so you solve the problem of autonomous driving, and within a few years, the ROI of replacing your fleet with autonomous trucks and saving that money is just going to be
astronomical.
I mean, it's almost, it's astronomical. It's a no-brainer. And so the thing that's limiting how quickly that industry gets destroyed would be how fast you could actually transition the fleet. So it's a production capability. Some of those jobs would transition into the creation of that, but that's still also a short-term type of blur as far as the replacement of everything. What do you do as far as retraining? Yeah, where do you go? And then what happens when you're getting retrained and the job that you're training for is now the next one that's on the chopping block?
Again, to your point, we're not that far away from those things, like the V2X technologies, the vehicle infrastructure technologies that have to be implemented in order to create that kind of warm environment for those vehicles to operate autonomously. We're pretty close. In Volvo's pretty close on autonomous tractor trailers. Those experiments are ongoing. So we're talking 5, 10 years. This could be a very different reality. To your point, though, we need to come together as a society to have the conversation about what is the future of work for humans? What are the jobs of the future? And how do we need to invest in that future as a society? Government. How is government going to invest? How is academia going to shift in order to fulfill the demand of the future? I think these are things are really far too slow. And frankly, without getting to like saying, we're not having the right conversations with society right now. We're having conversations about things that are on the fringe and not really important. And we've become so polarized in all the conversations in the media and in government. We're just not talking about these things that are really important and will really transform just in a very big way. But at the same time, we need to be really optimistic about what this transformation can bring. The thorniest problem in human history are solvable with AI, in particular, super intelligent AI. We could see the end of cancer in 5 to 10 years with AI. We can really see dramatic shift in climate change, in fighting climate change with AI. Our ability to move into space at a super accelerated pace will be dramatically different with super intelligent AI. There's so many things that are possible, right? But at the same time, we have to address the fact that this is going to mean large scale change for how we work and what the future of work really looks like. I am concerned that the pace of change, to your point, will marching us towards some kind of quest that
I totally agree with you that we've got three legs to this. And you look through history and every civilization has that power struggle of the merchant, the academia, the clerics, as well as the government officials, who holds the strength in what area. If one of those legs goes too fast or goes too far off and the other legs can't respond, that could lead to a collapse of the stool.
That's industry. You're right. Industry is that leg. It's going to move.
It's going to go so fast. Exactly. And it is always looking to solve problems. Like in good business solves pain points. The problem with our capitalistic society, at least this is from my point of view, is capitalism needs regulation to actually give it some guardrails so that it is supporting the people underneath it. And without that, you end up with a capitalist society that kind of just serves the few and may leave behind the many, where government kind of offers that balance point between the two spaces.
As a Gen Xer, the one thing that does give me great hope is that the generations that are coming up now have a different worldview than previous generations, at least as it relates to the role of capitalism in society and the role of government and how we should be operating as a society. I think I'm really optimistic about the changes that I'm seeing there. That said, the inevitable kind of laissez-faire environment that we're in with respect to technology regulation, if we don't address it pretty soon, there are some potential disastrous outcomes that we could do. Take this year, for example. I don't know about you, but I am not looking forward to, as we progress through the summer and we see the implementation of AI in the political spectrum, we're going to see invariably like tons of deep fakes, and we're already seeing it.
We're already seeing it.
And the pace of that is going to accelerate. To some degree, not having the regulations in place to address these things creates significant challenges because who knows where the boundaries at, what you can and can't do.
Just this morning, and who's going to regulate it if we don't, as a society, come together and say, this is where the boundary is? We're leaving it up to really like OpenAI and other AI companies to provide that regulation. Today, OpenAI kicked off five different organizations that were using their platform to create misinformation. And my first reaction to this was only 5? I was really surprised that was the number. I thought if they were watching for this, there would be a ton of accounts that were actually being used to create misinformation campaigns, because I've been seeing it all over the place as far as image generation, text generation, seeing comments from relatively new social media accounts that provide basically like the same kind of talking points in different ways, but are responding to actual people, but they're doing it at such a breakneck pace that it's hard to actually disseminate. Am I talking to a real person or not?
And frankly, too many people are just, so preoccupied that they would never take the time to actually figure that out.
And you and I are in this, have a passion for that future of work, have a passion for AI. And that's why I look at it, because I was like, you just end up developing an eye for this and being like, that response seems really like I would type that into ChatGPT, right? Like I could know, and if I did enough of a persona around it, it does have that. It's far enough along where it's not just so general, but at the same time, it has all those like telltale signs that it comes from AI. And at the same point, we're getting to that uncanny valley where it is so close that it could be very deceptive, and it is easily along those lines. I got to say, Mikah, it's been a real blast having you on. The one last thing that I want to ask you is, what do you think that people can do to prepare for this new world? Or like, what's a skill set that they personally can develop to help them on this journey?
That's a pretty broad question because it can depend greatly on what you do professionally. But I would say broadly, I think that from an education perspective, like the one thing that will not change, right, is we need to be focused on developing our critical thinking and reasoning skills. And that's something that will always benefit anybody in the workforce. one of the things that I'm really focused on personally, and I did my doctoral dissertation on, is how we develop and foster our emotional quotient, like our EQ, because that's something that is a skill that can be developed and fine-tuned. And I think if we're thinking about how we're going to be interacting with AI, but that's a garbage in, garbage out rule, our ability to train the systems to be a little bit more human, coming from a human, that might be the best input. So I think how we train the workforce moving forward, it's going to change dramatically. I think even the way we approach undergraduate education is going to change dramatically. And then as we look at, for example, master's programs, how to work with AI in your industry, specifically as it relates to your industry. If you look at most of the programs out there right now, it's not in the curriculum. It's not something they're even remotely thinking about. And academia is going to have to make a shift pretty quickly to catch up to where industry is going to be. That's the tail light in the dog. At the end of the day, almost all the things that happen in education, albeit slowly, are influenced by what happens in industry, because they're creating a product for industry. And at the end of the day, right now, they're not creating the best product for industry because they're not tailoring the curriculum and the development track to address the future needs of industry when it comes to technologies that are all wrapped around AI.
That is an absolutely great answer. And I agree with you. It's critical thinking and then also understanding how you're going to manage the AI in that space. Like, how do you actually work with it? And that is one of the first places that I've heard of. We're not talking about AI replacing you. We're talking about people who know AI and how to utilize it will be the next competition when it comes to either your job or moving forward. So it is a really positive place to be. Again, is there any place where our audience would like to reach out to you? Is there any place to reach you at, or can they find you on social media?
You can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram, but I also have a website, MikahSellers.com, and my email is hello@MikahSellers.com.
Awesome, my friend. Mikah, it's been an absolute pleasure being here with you today. And thank you again for making the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into The Human Code, sponsored by Findustries, where we harness AI to elevate your business. By improving operational efficiency and accelerating growth, we turn opportunities into reality. Let Findustries be your guide to AI mastery, making success inevitable. Explore how at findustries.co.